Secretary, good to have you here. Mr. Johansson, Dr. Johansson, your work is certainly cut out for you these days, trying to anticipate what's going to happen and how that's going to affect American agriculture. So, Mr. Secretary, we had a forum at Missouri State University a few days ago. It was Chris Chen, our Director of Agriculture, the President of the Farm Bureau in Missouri, Blake Hurst, and I answered questions for 45 minutes, and the Farm Bill never came up. Now, I don't think I've ever been in one of those forums before when that happened, but the topics were trade and regulation and rural broadband. And I think that says a lot about what's on the mind of our producers in the country today. Certainly on trade, I noticed that the proposed budget actually reduces the market access funding and the foreign market development funding at a time when I think that's probably the worst thing to do. But our trade relationships are having an impact on commodities right now. In an earlier discussion this week, it was pointed out that people trying to borrow money to put in a crop based on the future commodity prices are disadvantaged by the current downturn in those future prices. I don't really know what question to ask here. I believe you're an advocate for expanding our trade opportunities. That's clearly not the message that's coming out of the administration or the trade representative right now. But what problems, either you or Dr. Johansson, at a time when we're going to see world food need and world food demand accelerate so rapidly, what's the danger of uncertainty for farming families and for production agriculture, as well as all of the other things that are impacted every day by just the economy of food?
Great question, Senator. Before you were able to arrive, I talked about the cumulative effect of low commodity prices even before all these disruptions and the anxiety over farm income. We know that it's decreased about 50% over the last 4 or 5 years, which puts a lot of stress on any kind of business. And certainly with the trade disruptions in various ways, both from a trade dispute standpoint, both from RFS uncertainty that we've dealt with and those kind of things, these things are cumulative. I think you've accurately observed and the fact that these things have overshadowed in a Farm Bill year the reauthorization of the Farm Bill. And what we hear about, you identified 2 of the 3 tops that we hear, and that's trade, labor, illegal farm workforce, and immigrant regulation. Mm-hmm. And that's what we hear. Obviously, trade has taken the lead by a considerable amount in light of the recent days. The President has assured me, and I've tried to assure the constituency, our constituency out there, that we're not going to ask farmers to bear the brunt and to be the casualties in a trade dispute war. How we do that, and obviously our goal is to have negotiations. I was very pleased over the weekend to see the Chinese president come back and indicate some willingness to sit down and talk. I applaud the president for kind of getting their attention. What's happened over the years is the Chinese have talked and talked and talked and talked, and nothing ever happens. And so with this issue of intellectual property theft, you also are aware that that's happened to agriculture as well. Right. In fact, in digging up seeds in fields of Iowa and trying to reverse engineer those genetics. So it's affected us all, and farmers understand that. They are patriots first, but when their livelihood and their futures are exposed, as they are now, there's considerable anxiety about that. And our goal is to afford them as much as we can a strategy to negotiate and to win the negotiation discussions about fair trade. We don't believe the Chinese have played fairly in those issues, but how we can do that while also having their back from a mitigation standpoint if it comes to that, and that's what we would plan to do.
One final observation. I'm about out of time here, and Dr. Johansson, you and I can hopefully talk about this later. I think it's going to be challenging enough to meet the new demands and opportunities in agriculture with adding things to it, people continuing to want to be part of the thing that we are the most competitive on in the world is a good thing. I think the regulatory efforts generally by EPA, certainly well received where I live on the waters of the U.S. and the power rule that would have really damaged our economy. But one EPA issue I'm going to bring up, even though this is not an EPA hearing, is the Economic Hardship Waiver Authority on the RINs issue. I've got a letter that we sent the President, Senator Thune, Senator Ernst, Senator Grassley, Senator Fisher, and I, and I'll see that you get a copy of that as well, Mr. Secretary, but I'd like to enter that into the record, Mr. Chairman, of this meeting as part of our record, just our concerns that if you're going to use that waiver authority, you really need to use it in the way it's been intended. Reduction in commodity prices, another reason to reduce commodity prices is not what we need to see right now. So.
Senator, you might imagine that the astute secretary would already have that letter, and I've seen it, and I concur with your opinion. As you know, we have a statutory volume of 15 billion gallons, and those waivers reduce that to the gallon for gallon. And we've asked for that information from EPA, and the administrator has promised to have that as soon as they can gather that information over the waivers that have been issued. But that is demand destruction in that way, along with the trade dispute anxiety right now, and it's having a cumulative effect over our producers and their financiers and bankers and others in the whole chain of supply chain of agriculture.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Secretary, and thank you for the job you're doing and being on top of that and other issues even before brought up here.